So today I thought I'd show you how to make gluten-free choux pastry. Now, choux pastry is something that a lot of people seem to think is a bit scary, but it's really, really not. It's probably, I would say, the easiest of all the pastries to make. It's really, really quick. It just does its thing. You don't have to roll it out or anything. And choux pastry, if you don't know it by its name, it's what you use to make stuff like eclairs or profiteroles or choux buns or all those sort of things. And it's so nice, it's fluffy and airy and light, and my gluten-free choux pastry, you would not know is gluten-free. And if you want the written recipe for this, it's in my brand new cookbook, How to Make Anything Gluten-Free. There's not only the choux pastry in there, but there's also how to make it into profiteroles and also how to make it into eclairs. So you've got like a range of things to do it, to use it for, do it with, whatever. It's all in here. So I'll link below if you want to check it out or grab yourself a copy. Would really, really appreciate that. And if you do, I really hope you like it. So anyway, without further ado, I will show you the ingredients and then we'll get on with it. Okay, so here are all your ingredients that you're going to need for your choux. Nice and easy, as you can see, they're very, very simple. You'll probably have every single one of these already. So let's start over here. We've got some gluten-free self-raising flour. If you don't have the self-raising flour, then you can make your own. There's a recipe in my book actually that shows you how to switch plain gluten-free plain flour to gluten-free self-raising. Really, really simple. Then we've got some xanthan gum, which in this recipe is quite important, so make sure you have that. Got a little bit of sugar, tiny bit of sugar, just for a little bit of flavour. But yeah, you don't need much because it's all about the filling and the topping of eclairs and profiteroles. Then we've got some milk here and we've got some water. I do like half and half because if you just use all water, I find that it will be a bit pale, your choux. If you use all milk, I find that it's a bit dark. So just have a bit of both. That's what I do. Then I've got some butter here. Now this is just a hard butter, but it can be softened or it can be hard or whatever because we're melting it, so it doesn't really matter at this point. And then I've got some eggs. Now the book says large eggs, and large eggs can be from sort of the weight of 62 grams to 72 grams-ish. So these are around 63 grams. And when you're weighing eggs also, make sure you weigh them in the shell. It's not out of the shell, it's always in the shell. So that's all the ingredients for the choux. And I'll just show you how easy it is to make it. Okay, so first things first, we'll just sort out the dry ingredients. So that's the self-raising flour. I'm gonna add my sugar and also add my xanthan gum. Mix it all together, and then we can get on straight away with the wet ingredients. Okay, so after we've got all our dry ingredients, we'll just put them down over here. We need to mix all of our wet ingredients, or sort of wet, I guess they're wet, aren't they? So we just need to put them into a saucepan. I've got like a small to medium saucepan here. Smaller probably is better. I'm just gonna add my milk, and then I'll add my water. And then finally to this, I'm just going to add my butter, which I have just cubed a little bit. It doesn't need to be cubed really, but I just think it's easier because it takes less time to melt. So then I'm going to turn my hob on, sort of a low to medium. And basically what we want to do is we just want to get it so that all of the butter is completely melted. We don't need to be sort of stirring it all the time, but just watch it. Shouldn't take too long. So yeah, as you can see, that is my water, my milk and my butter. And at this point, obviously, it's got a little way to go because the butter is still whole. But as soon as that becomes all liquidy, a bit more like these bits over here, then we'll be sort of ready. So we'll be then waiting for it to simmer, and then we'll be adding this. So as you can see, we're nearly there. The butter has completely melted. We're just waiting for it to simmer, and then I'll be adding those dry ingredients. But the most important thing when adding the dry ingredients is that we need to do this very, very sort of quickly and fast. So to do that, I think I'll need to put you down. So I'm going to put you down, but I'll show you what the consistency should be like once it's there. Right, okay, so this is just gently simmering now. So I'm going to turn the heat off. I'm going to take it off the heat, and then I'm going to add in this all in one really, really quickly, or as quickly as I can. So put that all in, get all the extra, and then I'm just going to mix. And it looks awful, it looks a mess. If you're doing this at the same time, you'll notice that it's just really, really messy. It looks a bit sort of, almost a bit like scrambled eggs at first, but you just want to keep mixing it. And it's really important that you do this off the heat as well, so that you're not getting any heat into it. You don't want to be cooking it as you go. And I must say, if I looked at this and I didn't know what it was, and I just walked into the room, I'd probably say it looks a bit like mashed potato, because it really does. So here is what we've got. We've got a mixture that definitely looks like mashed potato, right? Now, this is still a little bit wet. You can't really see it on the camera, but there's a bit too much moisture in there. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna put it back onto the hob, onto there, and allow it to cook off for maybe a minute or so. No more than a minute, really. But I'm gonna be moving it all the time because obviously we don't want this to stick to the bottom. Right, so I'm just gonna put it back onto here and put it on the lowest that we can get it on. And I'm just gonna sort of move it around a little bit. You can see it there. Just move it, just so you're getting more of the moisture out, and then it'll be perfect. Because the only other ingredient we've got to add, right, is the eggs. Okay, so here is our choux that needs to be cooled. Now, I wouldn't recommend cooling it in the pan because this pan's really hot. So we want to cool it somewhere cooler. So a lot of people probably would just say cool it in like a glass cold bowl because that'll be the quickest way to cool it. I tend not to do this because I'm always in a hurry. My life is too busy. So what I do is I get something like a small baking sheet. I think you can see me in that. Hello. I get a small baking sheet and I actually spread it out on here because if you think about it, when something is thinner, it's gonna cool quicker. Right, so my mixture is sufficiently cooled now. I'm just gonna quickly put it to one side because I need to sort my eggs out. So I'm gonna put 4 eggs into this jug. Okay, so I'm gonna add this beaten egg into this and I'm gonna use my electric mixer, which I just find a lot easier. You can do it by hand if you don't have an electric mixer, or you could even use a stand mixer if that's all you've got. The other thing I wanna say is that this obviously, as I said, was 4 beaten eggs they're classed as large eggs, around 63 grams each with the shell on. But as the book says, you might not need all your egg. Now this is probably one of the most important things about making choux pastry. So we've got to this point, relatively easy, but when you're adding the egg, if you add too much egg, you're not gonna get choux pastry that nicely puffs up. It'll probably like sink down on itself in the oven or when you take it out because it'll be too heavy and too wet. So as you can see at this point, it's starting to come together. It's not all like little bits anymore. It's actually forming some sort of dough, as it were. So it's not too far off. And you can see that I've still got some of the eggs left. So I'm just gonna add a tiny bit more and then we'll probably stop because at this point it's basically pipeable and that's what we want. We want it to almost be, I mean, it's wet, but it's dry. Right, so that is our choux pastry. It's nice and sort of elastic almost. It's sort of, looks a bit like cake batter in a way, but it's a bit firmer than that. It's not wet at all. It's sort of got a bit of a stretch to it, and that is what we're looking for because that is going to be perfect to put into a piping bag and then pipe onto our baking sheets to be either profiteroles or some sort of bigger choux buns or eclairs, whatever you want. This is the sort of texture. You see? Hopefully you can see that. That is absolutely perfect for that and it will pipe really nicely. Okay, so I've got my piping bag. This is just a plastic one. You can get sort of ones made of different materials and stuff. This is just the one I've got today. And here is my nozzle. There you can see it's about a 1 centimeter sort of open star nozzle. That's what I'm using. If you're using different nozzles, you can use like just a round one. And the way that I like to fill stuff, little tip if you're new to all of this, is I just like to do this, put it over a glass, and then you can fill it all up using the glass. So you don't have to get it too sort of sticky around the edges. I just find that really helps. So I'm gonna do some of that now. So I've got my piping bag, filled it with some choux, got my nozzle on there. I preheated my oven to 200 degrees C fan, which is 220 degrees C, and I've also prepared my baking tray. Now I've got some non-stick baking paper on here, and I have actually drawn some pencil lines on the other side of it, not the side that you're going to be piping onto, because otherwise it would show up on the choux. You don't want pencil on your choux buns or your eclairs or your profiteroles. But I've just done it so that I've got a bit of a guide. Now I don't tend to always do this because I don't really care how they look that much. So this is about 10 centimeters, and then I've drawn a line across here that just shows how wide you kind of want to go, and then put a little gap in between because they do puff up, so you don't want to have them literally next to each other. You want a little bit of space. So I'm just going to pipe onto this, and then I'll be popping it in the oven, but I'll talk about oven, how long and everything after I've done this. But also, if you don't have the piping bag or don't feel confident with one, you can just do this by hand, so that you could just sort of spoon it on. Okay, so there's our messy, very messy choux eclair dough pastry, whatever you want to call it. Now I'm going to, you can see I've got little edges here that sort of when I brought away the thing. So I've got a little bit of water, and I'm just going to get one finger or a couple of fingers, maybe a finger and a thumb. I'm just going to gently just use my finger to sort of smooth off the edges so that you don't have any sort of pointy bits coming up, because not only will that look more untidy, but also they'll cook quicker and they might burn because they're sort of thinner. So you just sort of smooth off the edges so it's nice and round. And there's a really important thing that I'll say now. Listen up, listen up. Don't ever open the oven. Don't open the oven at the point where you're changing the temperature or anything like that. It is not a good idea. They will just sink. But yeah, I'll put these in and I'll show you once they're done. And there we go. See how much they have spread as well. But what we need to do now is we're going to turn the oven off, and we're going to turn these all upside down, and we're going to put a little hole in them. 1 second, I need to get some sort of skewer. So we're going to take them all, and we're going to make sure that we poke a little hole in them so that the steam comes out and they don't sort of sink on us. Right, so now that I've done that, I am going to put them back into the oven, but with the oven door slightly open, just to let them cool down really, really gradually. And obviously with the rest of my mixture, I can do that afterwards. Or if I've got somewhere else that I could keep these warm so that it's a gradual cool down, I could put them somewhere else and then do the rest of the mixture now. But it's really important, otherwise you will just find that they'll sink. So yeah, I'm gonna do that. And then they'll be ready to fill with some delicious filling, whatever you fancy. I think today, for ease, I'm just gonna do it with some sort of fresh cream and a bit of a chocolate ganache on top, but you could literally do anything. You could do a creme pat in there. Possibilities are endless. But yeah, let's get these cooling down. Right, so whilst the eclairs are cooling down, let's do some profiteroles, shall we? Right, so there we go. And next time you'll see these will be all puffed up, beautiful little choux bun profiteroles. And here they are, lovely and puffed up, looking beautiful. And it's just the exact same thing as with the eclairs, that we need to just poke a little hole in the bottom of them, and then we're going to pop them back in the oven to cool with the oven turned off. So I'm just going to do that now and then pop them back in the oven. Once they're cool, we can fill them, decorate them, make them look beautiful, but you know, don't these look good? Perfect. Nicely risen. Yeah, so easy. Okay, so all the choux pastry has cooled down, the eclairs, the profiteroles, so all that's left now is to do my favourite bit, which is filling them with yummy stuff. So in the book, you'll find some filling suggestions, but I'm just going to keep it really simple with a whipped cream and a chocolate ganache on top. So I'm going to do that now. And also, I'm just going to cut them in half and fill them, but you can put a little hole in the bottom and pipe into them if you want to make them look, I don't know, a bit cleaner, but I think they look just as nice, sort of as a sandwich, as it were. So yeah, I'll do that now. You can watch along, and then I'll get to eat them, and you'll just get to look at them. Okay, so first things first, I've cut one of my eclairs in half, and you can see it's nice and airy inside, so it's perfect for filling with cream. And then I've got some whipped cream, which I just whipped up some double cream with a bit of icing sugar and a little bit of vanilla until it was fairly stiff. And I'm just gonna pipe that into the middle here. So you can see that we've got Some nice cream in there. And then obviously we want to finish it off with a nice topping. So what I've done is I've made a little chocolate ganache, which is just using equal amounts of double cream and melted chocolate, or chocolate that you'll see in the book basically. But it's a very simple thing to make. And I'm just going to, either what you can do is you can dip this into there upside down, or you could just spoon it on and then you're just going to let it set, and then it's done. Obviously you want to repeat it for all of them because you don't just want one, you're going to eat quite a few, I think. But yeah, I'll do that now. So now you just want to leave these to set, you want to do all your others, leave it to set, and then there you go. You've got a perfect chocolate topped eclair. Okay, so same thing for all the profiteroles. Just going to cut this in half. Like that. And leave it to set. So if you've enjoyed this video and want to watch more videos like this, you might like to check out my video for pastel de nata, gluten-free pastel de nata that is. So if you do, click up here. Or if you want to go down the bread route, I have got a gluten focaccia video. Gluten focaccia? A gluten-free focaccia video. So if you want to check that out, then click up here. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye.